And we're on lesson 6.6, unit 6, lesson 6. This is about the standard form of a line. Your objective is right there. Get it down. Let's get started. So far we've learned about two different forms of a line. We've learned about slope-intercept form. We've learned about point-slope form. Now we're going to talk about standard form. Okay, and this is what standard form is. It's in this format: ax plus by equals c. Okay, a and b are not both 0. Okay, so one could be 0, the other could be 0, but not both of them. Alright, and a, b, and c are integers. Okay, so a, b, and c are going to be numbers. So for example, we might have negative 4x plus 3y equals 15. That is standard form, okay, where we've got a is negative 4, b is 3, and c is 15. Okay? And the reason why a and b are not both 0 is because if we had 0 x's and 0 y's, then we would have 0 equals to whatever this number is, and that's impossible. Okay? So all three of these a, b, and c need to be integers. No fractions, no decimals, just positive and negative numbers. Okay, but this is what standard form looks like. Alright, and we'll talk about why it's a good thing. So let's go ahead and go on to an example. This example says to write in standard form with integer coefficients. Okay, and we got steps there. The first step, though, I guess I should have put this on there, but I didn't. The first thing I always want to see is standard form. And it's another one of those things where I want you to keep writing it so you get it memorized. So the first thing I'm going to do is write that I need ax plus by equals c form. Alright, so that's what I need. Then I'll rewrite the equation as it looks. Y equals 2/5 x minus 3. Well, and now even before I start this, we need to always change subtraction to addition. So I'm going to have y equals 2/5 x plus negative 3. Now, we need to multiply all terms by a common denominator, okay? Because we have a fraction here and we can't have a fraction. It's got to have integer coefficients. Well, the common denominator of all my terms, well, the only one that has a denominator is this 5 here. So I'm going to take this and multiply everything by 5. So I'm going to take y equals 2/5 x plus negative 3, and I'm going to multiply it by 5. Alright, and that is going to give me, and again, we got to make sure that we distribute this to every single term here. Okay, so 5 times y is 5y. 5 times 2/5 just gives me 2 x's. Plus, and 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. And now we just need it in ax plus by equals c form, so that means that our x's and y's have to be on the same side, and we have to have just a constant over here. So I've got to get my 2x on the same side as the y, so I've got to subtract 2x from each side. That's going to cancel them out over here and leave me with 5y minus 2x's equals negative 15. Okay? Well, of course, we changed subtraction to addition, so it's 5y plus negative 2x equals negative 15. And we need it in this form, ax plus by equals c, where the x comes first. So I'm just going to flip these two around and make it negative 2x plus positive 5y equals negative 15. And there we are in standard form. Okay? So that's how to get standard form with one of these examples. Again, we'll talk a little bit later about why standard form is a really good form to write in. Okay, let's go on to another example. Now this example says to write an equation of the line with a slope of 2 that passes through negative 4, 3 in standard form. Okay, now your first step is to write the equation in point-slope or slope-intercept form. Now you'll have to decide which one is better based on the information you're given. Here I'm given the slope and a point. Well, that is point-slope form. That's what that stands for. Okay, so I'm going to write this in point-slope form since I'm given the slope and a point. So first thing I'm going to do is write down m equals negative 2. And then I've got my point, 4, 3. And of course this is my x and this is my y. Okay, that's right, x1 and y1. Now I'm going to write down point slope form first. Again, that was y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And now we're going to fill in the information we know. We know that y1 is 3, so it's y minus 3 equals m is negative 2 times x and minus x1, which is negative 4. Okay? Well, I can't leave this like this. I got to change all this stuff to addition. So I'm going to make this y plus negative 3 equals negative 2 times x plus, and the opposite of negative 4 is positive 4. Okay? So this is okay for point slope form, and so is this, but we would make this just x plus 4. Okay? So here we are in point slope form. Now we need to rewrite it in standard form. Well, again, standard form means we need x's and y's on one side and just a constant on the other. Well, the very first thing I'm going to have to do here is distribute. Okay, so I'm going to take this and distribute it, and we get y plus negative 3 equals negative 2x plus, and negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Well, now I've got to get my constants on the right side and my x on the left side. It doesn't matter which order I do that in. I'm going to start by getting my constants on the right side. So we'll add 3 to each side, because we know that negative 3 and positive 3 are going to cancel each other out, and leaves me with y equals negative 2x's plus, and negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. Now I've got to get my x on the other side, so I'm going to add 2 x's to get it away. And these cancel and leave me with y plus 2x equals negative 5. And the last thing I need to do is flip-flop the x and the y, so it's in y or ax plus by equals c form. So we get 2x plus y equals negative 5. Alright, let's keep on moving on. Now, one of the good things about standard form is that in standard form you can tell a lot about the line just by looking at the equation, okay, which is good for graphing. This standard form has some tricks to it, okay? Well, the slope of the line is always the opposite of a over b. The y-intercept is always c over b, and the x-intercept is always c over a. Okay, so for example, let's say that this is my equation again. We got negative 4x plus 3y equals 5. Okay, my slope is the opposite of a over b, so I know my a is the one that's attached to the x, that's negative 4. My b is the one that's attached to the y, which is 3, and my c is 5. So my slope, my m, equals the opposite of a over b, which in this case the opposite of a is 4 over, and b is 3. So I know just from this that my m is 4/3. Okay? The y-intercept is c divided by b. So my y-intercept is c divided by b, which in this case is 5 divided by 3, or 5/3. So my y-intercept is 0 and 5/3. And then my x-intercept is c over a. So my x-intercept is 5 over negative 4. So the x-intercept is negative 5/4 and 0. And again, that's pretty helpful information for graphing, because this form alone can tell us a bunch of stuff, where slope-intercept really only tells us the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, point-slope will tell us the slope and a point, but this form we can know the slope, we can know the y-intercept, and we can know the x-intercept just from this information that I put up at the top up there. Okay, so then it'd be pretty easy to sketch a quick graph here. We have a y-intercept that we could plot, we have an x-intercept we could plot, and we have a slope that we could use to help us graph. Alright, let's go on to some more stuff about standard form.